I know this is a tech podcast, but that's never really stopped us in the past.
Fair enough.
This has nothing to do with anybody unless you live in the state of Georgia and you're probably still recovering from your paste eating binge last night of like, what the hell just happened? I know it's the draft, and I know it's not the
Talking about
most
the
exciting.
Atlanta Falcons?
Oh, yeah. They did, quite possibly. Now, historically, somebody could bring this up in like 5 years and be like, that was actually not dumb. But as of today, the dumbest thing possible. Like, the dumbest thing possible. So, nutshell version here, because I got to get this off my brain so that way I can move on with life.
They drafted a quarterback, right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
However, that's the funny part. Here's the punchline. Prior to the season starting, they needed a quarterback. So they said, who's the best available quarterback? They went and got Kirk Cousins, and they are paying him $100 million guaranteed. Not like, he might earn. No, guaranteed part of his contract is $100 million. It's up to 4 years, but 2 years, they could cut him. But those 2 years, it cost them $50 million. So hilarity ensues. They get Kirk Cousins. They're gambling $100 million on this, plus more potentially, but $100 million. It gets worse than that.
I'm reaching here a little bit, but are you suggesting he's not worth $100 million?
No, it's even worse than this, Paul Threat. It is even worse than this. So the Falcons did an illegal move in the NFL, and it's called tampering, which means they were talking to Kirk Cousins before they were allowed to, because they try to keep the trades inside a certain window, and you can't talk to people outside of that. So they got nailed for tampering. So they're going to lose a draft pick likely next year.
Yes, this is an even bigger bet.
Oh, no, it gets worse than this. It gets worse than this. It gets worse than this. The guy that they're paying Kirk Cousins $100 million to be their quarterback. They go in the first round of the NFL draft. They draft, as you pointed out, a quarterback, but not just any quarterback, Paul Thurrott. Most quarterbacks in the draft are 21 years old, coming out of college. This particular individual is 24. Now, granted, he's a good quarterback, but he's also 24. If Kirk Cousins plays out his entire contract, which, again, I will remind you, is $100 million, he would be 4 years from now, which means that quarterback would be potentially 28, 29 before he starts in the NFL. The Falcons would only be able to get 1 year at a reduced value of like his rookie contract. And they have no receivers.
This is the franchise that was winning a Super Bowl 28-3 deep into the third quarter and lost that game. Yeah. So,
anyways,
I don't know a lot about, the ownership or management of most NFL teams. Hold, please. I'll be right back.
Anyways, while Paul goes and does that, $100 million. Anyways, it just proves that at the end of the day, you don't have to be smart. You just have to be persistent, which has been sort of a career motto for me. And speaking of persistence, look who's back now.
Sorry, our poltergeist was getting loud. I thought someone was knocking at the door.
No.
My wife was upstairs, but it was my wife knocking the espresso thing to clean it out so she could make more coffee.
Anyways, Microsoft reported earnings yesterday.
Oh, we really just shifted gears right there.
I had to get it off my brain because I've been laughing about this for how long ago was this draft pick? They were number 8, 12 hours ago.
I mean, I look, what fun would the NFL be if there wasn't some drama?
Yeah. It's basically the Chicago Bears taking that dumb crown off their head and going, thanks for being that guy this year.
Chicago Bears. I mean, there's a lot you could, geez. I mean, so the New York Jets on this list. The Browns.
People have done dumb stuff. I mean, the Bengals took a huge gamble. They drafted an offensive lineman, which is inherently a good thing. And this dude is, Gimumbus would be underselling how big he is.
An excellent word, but yeah.
However, there's one critical downfall. First off, he's never allowed up a sack. Impressive stat, you might say, at Georgia. So Georgia plays good teams. However, he only has 8 starts.
Really?
Exactly. So
no, I mean, like, really?
Yeah.
Like, how is this possible?
Through a series of unfortunate events and timing, he has 8 starts. Yeah. Something like 700 snaps or 300 snaps, never let up a sack. The dude has the physical characteristics to be
there are
Huge.
players who just are in L sports who just are curiously fragile,
Mm-hmm.
and they're awesome athletes, and they just seem to always be out, down and out. Like Nomar Garcia-Pera was like this in baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Chad Pennington, the quarterback for the New York Jets about a million years ago, was like this. I always thought this
Fingers
guy was
crossed Joe
so
Burrow is not on that list.
that right. Well, no,
It's
that's of course that's a concern. And one of the you look, this. I mean, just from being a human being, like sometimes you hurt yourself in a certain way, and it kind of makes you more prone, like
mm-hmm.
because you're not really thinking about it, but you're favoring things, and
Yep.
you're actually making yourself more likely to re-injure yourself. Anyway, yes, you definitely have a worry with that with Burrows, but
Well, the thing is like there's no offensive line pick that is like, oh yeah, that's a whatever. So they're taking a bit of a gamble. They picked physical. Our front line is basically sumo wrestlers now.
well,
Athletic,
yeah, that's what you want. I mean,
which is look, I get why they made the pick. So anyway,
an offensive line is scientifically manufactured in the same way as like specialty dogs.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like these are basically experiments with DNA and genetics. I mean, it's these
like
freakish human beings.
Their front line. He's a big dude, like
Yeah.
big dude.
Yep.
Anyways, speaking of big things,
Yes.
Microsoft reported earnings yesterday. Revenue of $61.9 billion, an increase of 17%. Net income of $21.9 billion, an increase of 20%. They had an absolutely huge quarter.
You must find yourself falling into this trap sometimes because your wife, like mine, does not give a shit about any of this stuff.
No.
But I had written about this last night. I think I wrote like 6 articles last night between dinner and watching TV. I was like, all this stuff happened, a bunch of earnings, whatever else. And anyway, I looked at it's the morning after, I'm reading the paper, and there's like a news story about this, and I decided to read it to see how someone else, like New York Times or whatever, covered it. And I looked over at my wife, and I was like, it shouldn't be possible for a company the size of Microsoft to experience double-digit revenue and profit growth. Like it should not be possible. How do you take a company that's literally the biggest company in the world
mm-hmm.
and then say we expanded by 20% in this one quarter? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like that's not how. That's crazy. Anyway, this was this is the way we kind of dealt with Apple for like a decade there, right? Or more, and probably, and still are really, right? I mean, this kind of growth should not be possible. Yep. And and the other thing was, I'm not going to get this quote right. I think it was Amy Hood said something like, they're spending, I think the figure for this quarter, they're spending between 10 and 15 billion a quarter building out AI infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
I think the figure for this quarter was 13 point something. They spent $69 billion on Activision Blizzard.
I know.
And they're like, yeah, we're doing great. Like we can swallow these costs and still be the most profitable. They raised their margins.
Mm-hmm. I think they have something like $80 billion in cash equivalents now back in the bank after buying Activision.
They wish there was another Activision they could buy. It's
they should go buy EA. That would just for the fun of it.
Yeah, just to keep
see
everyone busy for a little while.
Brad Smith is over there like, I'm bored. Let's go.
You can picture whoever runs EA. When you say EA, I swear to God, the thing that comes to my mind is Trip Hawkins. I'm not even sure he was ever at EA, but if he was, it was like 3 billion years ago. But anyway, whoever the CEO is of EA, fielding this call, and he's like, "You're pranking me, right? Like this is an April Fool's joke or something. Yeah. Like there's no way." Like, hugely successful.
Todd Bishop put this graph. I think it was Todd Bishop put this graph together. Hopefully, maybe you can see it on your end. It just shows the major revenue by product line, and you can just.
I'd love to know how he came up with these numbers, since Microsoft does not divide them out like this. But okay,
it's Todd. I would think Todd is not making.
Well, we're guessing. It may be an embarrassment to Microsoft that in fact Windows is doing better than you think. That kind of thing comparatively. But okay, but fair enough.
But Microsoft revenue by major product lines, so you can see just really that the cloud services are hell up there.
You can also see the future of Xbox in this graph a little bit because they grab Activision Blizzard. This adds some number of billions of revenue every quarter, some number of percentage points improvement year over year, though that's going to eventually dry up a little bit, as we hit the year point. But still, the future of Xbox is like software services, right? It's not the hardware.
Yeah, because
I
the
know that
hardware
bugs.
sales.
I know that bugs Xbox fans. I get it, but and I really do get it. And we'll still see Xbox hardware, but you just have to kind of accept that it's like a loss leader, and it's
I mean,
just the way
console
it is.
sales were down 31% year
The
over
only
year.
thing that was more embarrassing for Microsoft in this quarter than Surface was Xbox, right? Xbox hardware.
Yeah,
Um,
Surface is an interesting one because we knew, like, they basically looked at everything. If it didn't have a certain margin percent to it, they just said, "We're done. We're done with you. Like, we're done."
yeah.
Their gross
Well,
margins were actually very good for Surface. However, their overall revenue was down because they got rid of all their bottom feeding stuff.
yeah, that was the right thing. They should never have gone after that non-premium part of the market. That was a
Yep.
huge strategy mistake. It follows the PC model in a sense that it's volume over quality, but the reality is only the premium part of that market makes any money. They were copying Apple anyway. I mean, think about it. Like, just stick with what do it
Mm-hmm.
with do what makes sense, right? So we'll see. I do think they have the right mix here. Laptop pseudo portable workstation pro to me makes sense,
Yep.
and I hope they keep them going. I mean, I intend to buy one. Honestly, I'll probably buy a laptop this year. Um, but does it make sense as a business?
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet. It doesn't. So, I mean, I don't. This is the fifth quarter in a row of double-digit revenue declines for this business. By the way, fifth in a row, at least fifth. I say fifth because that's what was in their chart.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to go back and look and see what it looked like over time, but it's at least 5 quarters in a row. And that's just using the data they supplied yesterday. I did not have a lot of time and I had too much to write, so I did a quickie on that one. But 5 quarters, it's tough.
Anyways, I think Microsoft will survive another quarter, so they should be here.
Yeah, yeah, they're like Apple in the late 1990s. So they're just on a thin line there, but they'll be okay. Just pray.
Yeah, $20 billion at this point is.
Look at the other thing it compares to is like Amazon, Google, or Amazon, Alphabet, Google. Revenues, profits off the charts, just like Microsoft, but they couldn't point to anything and say like our AI investments are paying off. I mean, they can say that just like Intel is saying like our investments are paying off. Intel has become like um, a write-off in the corner of the market. They're like they used to be like the dominant microprocessor maker. Now they're just sliding into. I don't know how many quarters I can listen to Pat Gelsinger say everything's going to be fine. Our bets are paying off. We're doing the right thing. Like it's like and I'm not blaming him. He's the captain of the Titanic. He wasn't even at the wheel when this happened. But for I keep saying Amazon, Alphabet, Google, they got nothing to show for all this AI stuff. And it's bizarre because honestly, they were ahead of the game and maybe still are. We just don't know. But their money all comes from ads.
Mm-hmm.
It might work out that for Amazon, or I keep saying for Google, that their primary advance with AI might be through ads. Maybe that might be how it benefits them the most. That would be so stupid, but
Well, it's kind of aligns to that rumors because it's like, right? It's like we could build this new product, but then there's like this cocaine of like ad drip over here. They're like, oh, or we could hit that again. There's rumors or whatever that they were interested in buying HubSpot for probably that exact reason of like, hey, how do we diversify revenue? It's the Microsoft model. It's like you got to buy another line of business that's already successful.
Microsoft semi-arbitrarily divides their business into 3 business units. They were equal in revenue for a long time, actually, right? And now the intelligent cloud stuff, which is tied to Azure and AI, probably is the big one by far. But the business and productivity services, the Office 365, basically also growing strong. And productivity, no, I'm sorry, business, what's it called? More personal computing, the Windows, Surface, Xbox part of the company. Distant third, sort of, but these are still 3 big businesses. Google's other businesses, which amount to like services plus devices, and then Google Cloud, both of which are growing, right, are relatively small. They don't. Even Apple has a better. Is that true? Maybe that's not true. Apple and Google have similar problems with this, like one really big thing they can't get off of, and then this other stuff that maybe feeds off it a little bit, or is only possible because of that one thing. 70 something percent. It's hard to get off that teat. It just Microsoft did a better job with this. They even when Windows was dominant, even when we thought Windows was dominant, it often wasn't. It was the second biggest business compared to like Office back in the day, right? They had the one business, they had two, then they had three. And at that time, it was like server, Windows, Office, and then they'd made this transition to the cloud. I mean, it's honestly, it's business case study stuff. I mean, it's hard to move past that one dominant product. You're just not inclined to innovate. You don't disrupt yourself.
Yeah.
They have to be forced to, and for Google, it might be too late. Like when people finally realize, like, you don't really need search anymore, or that search is one function of this bigger thing we'll call AI, whatever, and that it doesn't matter which one you use for that. If you just want a direct answer, I don't know what happened. That business could implode very quickly. It's interesting.
It doesn't even have to implode because there's a lot of that inbuilt, like people know you just go to google.com, whatever. Like there's a certain demographic that will always do that. Doesn't matter what the hell happen. What needs to happen is that there just needs to be like a little bit of a dent into what Google does, where people have found alternatives, and then it would crumble.
In the same way that there's a virtuous cycle that occurs when a company is going full steam ahead and everything's going great, and they can just afford to throw money at everything, and everything's going great. As soon as the Google search stuff falls apart, even the parts of the company that are sort of self-independent or whatever are going to suffer, because Google's going to be like, oh no, hands on deck over here. They'll pull resources off that other stuff. And then that's the snowball, and Apple, who, let's face it, hates Google, needs them now, but they're going to be the one that sticks that wrench right into the bicycle spokes whenever they can. They're waiting for this.
Make no mistake. If Apple could spin up a search engine that would be at least equivalent, let's just say 98% equivalent, and they could sell their own ads in those search, they would do it overnight.
I mean, you're right, but I think we always sort of imagine that's how that would happen. But because of AI, I would sort of say they're going to do this partner thing and their own thing. And the thing that replaces Google search on iPhones or whatever will not be search necessarily. It will be AI plus some search. And that those things what we were just talking about are going to be what makes that unnecessary. And, we look at like Mozilla today as this company that's kept afloat artificially by Google, right?
Yeah.
Google could become that with Apple, like where Apple is artificially keeping Google afloat. It's not like that today. I want to be clear. That's not what's happening here, but that is a significant chunk of their revenue. And that sends a message to the rest of the world that these guys are superfluous now. I'm just saying, this is fantasy post-apocalyptic stuff, but I don't know. I reported these earnings every quarter, and I always look at these numbers, and I'm like, I see.
Meta had eye-popping numbers as well. Like they're all.
Yeah, all the ad stuff is going great, which explains why Windows sucks.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah. Microsoft
Literally.
looks at it and says, "How do we get a bigger slice?
Easy
of that pie?
money. Yeah. How do I pull a trigger and have money rain down on me without having to do anything?
Oh, they're getting pretty darn close.
I think they might already be there.
Yeah.
Anyways,
he's 6'7", 340 pounds.
Nice callback.